MoShiach Era Conspiracy Theory Files 12/4/21 by Karl Ben-Jedi. The Jerusalem Post reported today disabled IDF veteran sets himself on fire outside Defense Ministry. The medics classified him as being in severe condition and suffering from intense burns which cover his entire body. A 26-year-old disabled IDF veteran arrived at the offices of the Defense Ministry's Rehabilitation Division in Petah Tikva and set himself on fire on Monday afternoon, a spokesperson for the Defense Ministry reported. Defense Ministry security guards acted immediately to provide him with first aid and called Magen David Adom Services for medical assistance. The man was taken by ambulance to Sheba Medical Center. Tell Hashemer.my personal opinion only. This incident cannot be a coincidence in its timing with U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin visit to Israel due to this unnamed disabled IDF veteran committing this scream for help and distaste for his own and others who suffer in Israel, most likely caused by 3 failed governments. To be able to govern for the needs of the weak and helpless in Israeli society, things need to change, and a new prime minister would be a step forward away from repeated failures to run the state of Israel. MoShiach Era Conspiracy Theory Files 13/04/21 Israel News that gets missed by Karl Ben-Jedi. The Medialine article Pfizer, Moderna threatened to halt vaccine deliveries after Israel halts payment due to political bickering by Daniel Sonnenfeld. Reports Netanyahu, on trial, is delaying selection of a new justice minister, and Gantz is blocking payment approval until a nomination is secured. Pfizer and Moderna have frozen COVID-19 vaccine deliveries to Israel. The companies are furious at a delay in payment, resulting from disagreements between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and alternate Prime Minister Benny Gantz that have postponed the approval of the required budget. Pfizer has also threatened that it will deliver a shipment of 700,000 doses intended for Israel to other countries and give others priority over Israel, which has been at the forefront of the vaccination effort globally. In my personal opinion only. All agreements and timely payments must be honored and paid as agreed, but this very unsettling situation could cause a future tragic delay to future deliveries of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine. Israel is a natural land bridge by air-sea and by land, leaving it totally exposed to becoming nature's COVID-19 transmission site from worldwide visitations from abroad. Therefore, government mismanagement could have far-reaching consequences for everyone worldwide. Therefore, the flow of early and emergency vaccinations of the Israeli public and visitations is essential for worldwide health. MoShiach Era Conspiracy Theory Files 15/04/21 Israel News that gets missed by Karl Yehuda Ben-Jedi. Ynet News report by Itamar Eichner condemns IDF grave desecration by ultra-Orthodox extremists. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the burning of wreaths and flags laid in memory of IDF casualties by extremist ultra-Orthodox in Jerusalem. A shocking act of desecration was done. Netanyahu added, "I strongly condemn this barbaric act and expect the authorities to bring those responsible to justice as soon as possible. In my personal opinion only, this is a clear act of not just vandalism and desecration, but is a much deeper act of desecration. Hashem name in the Holy Land of Israel. Hopefully, Hashem will enact swift legal justice against those responsible and those that shield them from natural justice." MoShiach Era Conspiracy Theory Files 16/04/21 Israel News that gets missed by Karl Yehuda Ben-Jedi. Edited version 16 Retirement home residents contract COVID-19, most of them vaccinated. Article by TOI staff. The Times of Israel. 16 residents of a retirement home in Ashkelon were evacuated by Magen David Adom with medics on Thursday after being diagnosed with COVID-19. Walla News reported they were transported to a clinic in Hadera, near Haifa. None of them have symptoms, and most are vaccinated. According to Walla, the health ministry will investigate if the residents of Ne'adavi were infected with a variant strain. Last week, an Israeli study found that the South African variant of the coronavirus is notably more adept at breaking through the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine than other variants. In my personal opinion, only the state of Israel is about the same size as Wales in the UK. This makes it the ideal worldwide barometer for the ending of COVID-19. Now we have a red flag event which should alert both Israel and the whole world to a possible new strain of COVID-19. Unfortunately, care homes and the systems used there seem to be a kind of petri dish for signs of early danger signals. Israel plans to drastically relax its policies in regards to over-optimistic realities. This possibly could lead to open travel worldwide from a closed environment that allows special travel during lockdown. The only true solution is for every corner of the world's population to be vaccinated. MoShiach Era Conspiracy Theory Files 210421 by Karl Yehuda Ben-Jedi. Big blast at rocket factory jolts Central Israel and controlled test by Judah Ari Gross of the Times of Israel. Videos of the blast were widely shared on social media, prompting speculation that it was the result of a malfunction or sabotage, especially in light of ongoing tensions between Israel and Iran. Indeed, the explosion at this sensitive military site was featured prominently in Iranian media, which insinuated that it may have been a form of retaliation by Tehran for the recent blast at its Natanz nuclear facility that has been widely attributed to Israel. The Israeli defense contractor maintained that the images were misleading and that it was a deliberate explosion as part of a trial. In my personal opinion, only due to the timing of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's loss of the Knesset Arrangements Committee, which controls the legislative agenda of the current government, until a new one is formed. One could very well read between the lines that either Tehran or a vastly sophisticated cybersecurity friend of Iran could have played a major part in such a controlled test to send a clear and shocking signal to Israel, which could, if not properly handled, lead to an ever-increasing downward spiraling out of the current situation. Hopefully the adults in the room realize this on all sides and say enough is enough to allow some kind of short pause in the cycle of every increasing escalations, giving everyone breathing space before assessing and dealing with ongoing threats. MoShiach Era Conspiracy Theory Files 220421 by Karl Yehuda Ben-Jedi. A late-night missile attack that sums up all of Israel's fears. Analysis by Seth J. Frantzman of the Jerusalem Post, edited version. That happened early Thursday morning when a Syrian missile landed near Dimona and Israel retaliated by striking in Syria. The initial reports came out at around 2 a.m. They began with news of sirens in southern Israel and foreign media reports of those sirens being near Israel's secretive nuclear reactor. My personal view, only my first thought, is the Dimona site is clearly visible from the main road and is by no means a secret site by any stretch of the imagination. Secondly, I see this as a test firing from Syria on behalf of Iran in the event of a Middle East war breaking out. This is Iran once again, but this time shouting back off, or otherwise Israel will face its own Chernobyl disaster, bringing about a catch-22 situation where Iran, if it wished, could cause an uncontrolled far-reaching nuclear disaster. For better or for worse, the Iran nuclear deal seems to be the only option for regional stability for the benefit of not just the region, but the entire world. MoShiach Era Conspiracy Theory Files 270421 by Karl Yehuda Ben-Jedi. Gantz, Netanyahu attempted to steamroll the rule of law. He failed by the Times of Israel. In a statement to the media, Defense Minister Benny Gantz says that at the cabinet today, Prime Minister Netanyahu attempted in a planned and deliberate manner to steamroll the rule of law. He tried and failed. He says the premier tried to undermine the foundations of democracy by holding a vote against the law that served as the basis for the current government. The prime minister's belligerent and illegal conduct must be stopped now, he says, and in a message to right-wing parties that are considering joining with the anti-Netanyahu camp in the Knesset to form a government. Gantz says Netanyahu's word is worthless and personal considerations trump all others. In my personal view, only Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in desperate attempts to hold on to the home and lifestyle of a serving prime minister, has now turned into a loose cannon on the whole democratic process within Israel. MoShiach Era Conspiracy Theory Files 240421 by Karl Yehuda Ben-Jedi. Egypt condemns violence by extremist Jewish groups. In Jerusalem article by Liad Osmo of enidnews.com. Egypt's foreign ministry issued a statement Saturday in which it condemned the violence by extremist Jewish groups in Jerusalem. The ministry further expressed concern about the provocative actions taken by Israel against Palestinians living in Jerusalem since the beginning of Ramadan. Israeli authorities must take responsibility and provide the protection required of Palestinian residents, or prevent any violation of the right of worshippers to freely enter the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Egypt's foreign ministry added, my personal point of view, only having lived in Jerusalem from 1999 for a year, I know the new city may have changed dramatically while the holy old city would have remained the same, but is facing the challenges of the new city's ever-increasing growth around it. Everyone, in my viewpoint, should look at the old city as having the status of a country in its own right, much like the Vatican City in Rome, and should be blessed as having an open city status to the whole world due to its historical heritage and sacredness in everyone's hearts, whatever belief system you follow. I was blessed to know back then two Palestinian descendants of fathers whose responsibility in to watch over all the holy sites in the old city. This granted me back then a kind of key to the city, which in many ways changed my life forever. May everyone remember to respect the holiness of Old Jerusalem and always look for the good in each other, not the bad. Shavua Tov. MoShiach Era Conspiracy Theory Files 290421 by Karl Yehuda Ben-Jedi. Abbas Palestinians to hold elections if Israel approves Jerusalem voting by Ynet News. PA President tells Palestine Liberation Organization meeting that Israel told him they could not agree to holding elections in East Jerusalem since the current government is interim and cannot make decision of this magnitude. Palestinian elections can take place only when Israel approves voting in East Jerusalem, President Mahmoud Abbas said Thursday. In my personal opinion only, I have heard online a perfect solution to this fiasco which was put out online under news headlines. Unfortunately, at the time I did not record all the details, but it went something like this: that Palestinian Authority polling stations could be set up in every foreign embassy or consulate in Jerusalem. This would allow for legal voting to take place, and the results would be calculated by Palestinian electoral representative back to the Palestinian authorities. This solution is known, and if not acted upon shows a direct interference in their own electoral procedures with no one else to blame but their own leadership. MoShiach Era Conspiracy Theory Files 300421 by Karl Yehuda Ben-Jedi. Chief Rabbi, now is the time for prayer, not blame. By the Times of Israel Sephardic Chief Rabbi Yitzhak Yosef calls for prayer, not blame, following the deadly Lag B'omer stampede at Mount Meron. This is not the time to look for guilty parties, he says, urging mass prayer for the victims and injured. In my personal opinion only now is exactly the time to ask hard questions and to point out who could possibly be to blame, who gave permission for the event to take place, who is ultimately responsible for the safety of all Israelis, who has the authority to set up protocols to make sure something like this does not occur, who will, at the end of the day, give his deepest regrets and look for someone else to blame. Only one person, Israel, loose cannon of a Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whom Hashem seems to have abandoned. MoShiach Era Conspiracy Theory Files 030521 by Karl Yehuda Ben-Jedi. Sources: PM plans to torpedo Lapid chance of forming government. Beamer and Azalea of Ynet News. Sources close to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Monday the premier is seeking to torpedo the transfer of the mandate to form a government to Yesh Atid chief Yair Lapid and force President Reuven Rivlin to pass the mandate directly to the Knesset. According to sources, Netanyahu plans to get the entire right-wing bloc to recommend to Rivlin that an out-of-field candidate, apparently Energy Minister Yuval Steinitz, is tasked with forming a coalition. This would leave Lapid with only 45 recommendations as opposed to Steinitz's presumed 52, making it hard for the president to task the centrist Yesh Atid leader with the mandate. Netanyahu's mandate is set to expire Tuesday at 0 o'clock. In my personal opinion, only Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is seeking to subvert other Knesset members from being given the mandate from President Reuven Rivlin. You cannot make this stuff up. Democracy and the voice of the nation of Israel is what is supremely sacred, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is attacking the very fabric of everything that is holy on all levels so that he can, in some way, remain a dominant influence and be Prime Minister by proxy. MoShiach Era Conspiracy Theory Files 070521 by Karl Yehuda Ben-Jedi. 15 arrested in fresh clashes in East Jerusalem's Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood by Times of Israel. Staff: Palestinians and Israelis hurled rocks and chairs at each other in the tense East Jerusalem neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah on Thursday before Israeli police moved in to separate them, arresting at least 15 people, all of them Palestinians. In one incident, a Jewish Israeli man fired into the air after a vehicle was set on fire. My personal opinion: only neither the Israeli or Palestinian authorities will be able to contain this situation. On the one hand, we have Israeli interests in reclaiming properties abandoned for 1948 War of Independence that had Palestinian Jewish inhabitants. Then once they abandoned the properties in a time of war, the properties were sold or given to Muslim Palestinian families. This is a crucial but massively overlooked issue, that the homes went from one Palestinian family to another and were legally abandoned in a time of war with absolutely no intention of returning. Then after the recapture of Jerusalem in 1967, the issue of taking back lost Palestinian Jewish homes has become a major issue. I am no one of any importance, of any kind, but I too have abandoned a home and lost all my possessions due to personal circumstances which has forced me to go into bankruptcy. Will I go back in, say, 10, 20, or 30 years and demand to have a home I have no moral right to? No way. Life moves on, so my advice is for the courts to stop these politically legal evictions of any long-term Palestinian families, no matter their religion, due to the very simple fact when they were abandoned it was by Jewish Palestinians, and now Muslim Palestinians live there and in my opinion have a legal right to stay.